At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
This episode is brought to you by Peacock. The new Peacock original documentary, Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, dives deep into the beloved actor's rise to fame and his tragic death. 5 people, including Perry's personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and an alleged Hollywood drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen, were charged with conspiracy to illegally provide Perry with the ketamine. Explore the details of the case in this heartbreaking special, streaming now only on Peacock.
This podcast is part of E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience. David Housel described it best. We are living the whole of the Auburn experience. You can quantify it, you can qualify it through a variety of methods, time, people, places, and things. But at its heart, at its core, the Auburn experience is all about Auburn sports, Auburn culture, and Auburn family stuff. An easier way to say it, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. So thank you so much and join us in what we're going to do on episode 115 of the Auburn Experience podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Loomis, back from his sabbatical of sorts, and who has been waiting patiently for me to discuss all the different things that happened while I was on vacation. My co-host and your good friend, and I guess mine too, Mr. Austin Scott. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Kyle. Good to see you. Welcome back. You know, some of us always live at the happiest place on earth, but glad you got to check out the second.
You're talking about Auburn, right? Because that's the happiest place on earth right now. Now, there are places that you might call the most magical, but hey, the happiest place right now is Auburn.
Depends on the day, the game time, the thing. But glad to see you back, and glad to be back with all our listeners and viewers. I got 2 things here. Neither of them are up to date, but I think I'll be adding to the collection.
Oh, look at
right?
that. I
need to add to the collection.
Add it. I don't know. I would say take down what's behind you, but I love looking at those every broadcast.
I was just thinking that there is a lack of basketball up here. And so I need to find some newspapers and see what I can get going. But I was just thinking about that. It's funny you bring that up.
It's a good time to like reevaluate when some of these big milestones get hit, like what changes in the background here in my stuff as well. I know on this shot, you can't see as much of the room, but for those of you that watch our YouTube channel and stuff, you'll see other shots. I try to like mix. There's a baseball bobblehead of Josh Donaldson right here. Yeah. There's a basketball thing over here. So we got to try. Look, Auburn football is king. We don't, shy away from that, but we're obviously going to try to put everything in here. And so I think we can reflect that in our background sometimes.
Agreed.
I don't want you to change yours because I love looking at it, like I said. All right. We, as always, have plenty to discuss here. And as I addressed at the start of the show, I was a little checked out last week, and for, good reason. I was on vacation. It was very nice to check out from it for a little while, but I am ready to be back here discussing. So Austin may have to do the heavy lifting tonight on a lot of the stuff that I may or not be as up to date on. But let's jump into Auburn potpourri with all of that Auburn news that may not be our major topics this week. I don't have these in an order that we need to go in, Austin. So let's just do a basketball topic first, because we will be spending a lot of time talking about the great week that it was for Auburn men's basketball. But thinking about the future and what's going to be after this year, we're talking about schedules. And, this happens periodically, whether it's in season or out of season, we get a small or a big update to what's going to be the future schedule for any sports team. But for Auburn basketball, we've got another major matchup, a home and away set up. Not only do you get to look forward to the Duke, I'm sorry, they don't get to return. I had it in my head. It was Ohio State, that Purdue, that we get to do that for. I'm getting them all mixed up in my head right now. I told you I was on vacation. Anyway, Auburn and Arizona will now play a home and home starting in 2025, specifically starting in Tucson, December 6th to the 2025, and then returning to Auburn in 2026. We saw this with the Purdue matchup, and we've seen the great scheduling that Auburn coaching staff has done over the years. Just add this to their list right there. Aren't you? I'm so excited for this matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very similar to how Auburn scheduled this year in non-conference. It obviously worked out for them, or has so far. very cool to see another big brand Auburn get to go up against, as it is in college basketball. So very similar to kind of the Houston series or the Purdue series we're talking about. Obviously, these are going to be true on-campus games, as they should be, and so really excited to see that. The Auburn people are everywhere. We talk about that all the time. So there's some people out there out west that are going to get to see Auburn a little closer to home, and Bruce Pearl will be calling for plenty of witnesses in Tucson. But very cool opportunity for Auburn, it looks like it's going to be a really cool series here in the next 2 years.
Yeah, if you want to escape the cold that'll be creeping in, I hear Arizona is pretty nice that time of year. And listen, I think they would be considered a blue blood still by that token, the Dukes, the North Carolinas, all that kind of stuff. So Bruce likes to check off beating and taking down some of these blue bloods. Certainly Duke has escaped our wrath this year and previous years too. So far. But Arizona, you're next on the list. It will be a different team, a different time, all that stuff. But certainly this is yet again another benchmark in Auburn basketball history to show how dominant, how relevant they have become in the college basketball landscape. The fact that they're getting Arizona to do home and home with them, that is an incredible feat, a testament to this program, these players, and the coaches and Coach Pearl and what they put together for Auburn men's basketball. So excited for that in the future. Let's talk about women's basketball, and we don't want to shy away from this at all. It has not been a great year for Auburn women's basketball by any stretch of the imagination. It's been a little bit sad to see for us because we were seeing a nice trajectory for Coach Johnny Harris over the first 3 years. I think I've got my numbers right in my head. And certainly this year's been, certain things have happened, injuries, we've had players leave the team, be added to the team, things like that. It's just been a tumultuous year. We're at the end of it. It could have been better. They're thankful that the Tigers do get to participate in the SEC tournament. And they're not last in the SEC bracket. They're 14th out of the 16 teams that can compete in that bracket. So certainly they will be playing on the very first day of competition against Florida. It's quite the path, Austin, that they have through the tournament. And I think you can say that no matter the case in the SEC or men's or women's basketball. But Florida, if they win, Alabama, if they win that effectively, it would be LSU. I mean, murderer's row for them, and it's a tough way to start the women's basketball tournament.
Yeah, like you said, we've been pretty high on Auburn women's basketball the last couple seasons, and have looked forward to where the trajectory could take them. Just kind of hit a road stop or a curb stop this year, and just had a bunch of things happen. Hasn't been a good year on the court for them. You never know, right? It's March officially. It is March, and tournaments in March can tend to get a little hairy and crazy sometimes. It would take a mountain for Auburn women's basketball to make that climb, but stranger things have happened. But hopefully better years to come and better moments to come for Johnny Harris and Auburn women's basketball.
And certainly, obviously, I think you would need to take a step back if you're a fan and go, hey, this isn't the year that we expected. There have been great coaches that have had great trajectories and had an off year, and they bounce right back. So that's what I would encourage fans to do, is have patience, let the thing continue to work itself out, and let, obviously decisions will be made regardless of any fans' opinions out there. But they have an opportunity, a path. It is a tough one through the SEC tournament to continue their season. We'll see what they can do, and certainly be watching closely. Good luck to them playing over there in Bon Secours Wellness Center, I think is
nailed it. You nailed it.
It's like I do this for a living, even when I go on vacation. I miss things all the time, but that one stuck in my head for some reason right there. Okay, moving right along. This one's a little bit of a somber note here, but also a little thankful as well that we're talking about something very serious, but that has some what appears to be positivity to it. This week, a lot of you saw the announcement that was made by Auburn Athletics and Auburn football specifically about Coach Hugh Freeze's health. I don't have the full statement in front of me at this time, but you can go read that on their social media accounts. But they felt the need to share that Coach Hugh Freeze has prostate cancer. And certainly as someone and everyone, I think, has been touched by cancer in some way, whether it's a friend, it's a relative, all that stuff, and how scary that can be, how heartbreaking that can be. And it doesn't matter if it's skin cancer, this type, whatever. That's just a big, scary word. And so I think all of us got a little bit of a shock when we found this out and it was announced that he has that, but thankful in that press release that it seems to be very treatable. seems to be able to be something that can be remedied. And he can continue doing his normal operations as such. So scary, but good news, I guess, if you want to paint it that way in some sense.
Sure. Yeah. The first thing I kind of thought of when it came out is if it's being announced to the public, this has probably been something that's been known behind the scenes or by his family for a little while. And so we can only hope and pray that things continue to look good and a good trajectory for Coach Freeze and his family. I appreciate the transparency for them for allowing the Auburn family to pray for him and pray for his family and the doctors surrounding him. The other thing that came to my mind, and I have no idea if this is how he found out at all.
I know where you're going.
But with men's prostate cancer, the Outlive organization Bruce Pearl supports so much, that is a key a line for them is finding out early and getting tested and all those things. So unfortunate circumstances, but in a way to see those integrated is a very neat thing for Auburn and for those men who pay attention to that. So really hopeful that things continue to be positive, and our prayers are certainly with Coach Freeze and his family as they're navigating all of this.
Yeah, and as Alston said, we're just speculating here. It wouldn't shock me if he participated in those free blood tests that were given out to test for this and it found that way. But who knows? That's his own personal information. But I think even whether that's true or not, I also wonder if Coach Freeze felt a obligation to share this because of Coach Bruce Pearl's initiative and says, if it can happen to me, it can happen to you. And he's, he doesn't view himself greater than anybody else, but just putting his public figure out there and saying, hey, folks,
humanizes him a little bit.
Humanizes him. And folks, when you think about things that you say online, you might want to remember these type of moments like that a little bit. But regardless of that, I'm very thankful that we have what looks like a path to healing, and thankful that it seems to be something that was caught early. So as you already expressed, prayers for Coach Hugh Freeze and his family, because the disease certainly affects the individual, but it affects the family as well. No matter how serious, the scale of all of that, it is a scary thing. And certainly the Auburn family will be there for Coach Hugh Freeze as best we can, even if it's just in prayer and in spirit. So we'll switch from that bit of somber news to some happy stuff. NFL Combine happened this past week and weekend, and we certainly have previewed for you the Combine participants that were going to be there, that being Jarquez Hunter, KLS, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Eugene Asante, and Jalen McLeod. Am I forgetting anybody, or is that all four?
I
think that's all four.
I think that's four, though.
I think that's the four that were there. If we're missing someone, please forgive us. Again, this is more on me on Austin for forgetting because I'm just so scatterbrained right now. But the main thing we want to point out for you is just how well some of them did. We're not going to cover every detail here, but a certain note and stat that Austin looked up before we went live is that 3 Auburn players were in the top 10 in their position. So I think this is a good note, Austin, for fans, that when your team isn't maybe necessarily doing exactly what you want as a team on the field, doesn't mean they don't have great athletes and they don't garner great respect when they get to the next level. So Jarquez Hunter, Eugene Asante, KLS, we know from what we've seen officially in the top 10 in their position. So I think some great performances from all of them.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. After watching this season of the HBO's original series, The White Lotus, this is the tropical getaway I needed. One more pina colada, please.
Hey, you're not on mute.
Oh, I thought I was in paradise. Turns out it was my Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate Pina Colada and Thai-iced coffee flavored creamers. Inspired by the newest season of HBO's original series, The White Lotus. For the love of coffee. Try now.
Yeah, great performances. Top 10 in their position in the 40 time is very impressive. Not that the 40 time is everything. Of course, we've seen fast guys and not pan out in the league. But that's a big one that we all look at and that we all think about when we think about the combine. So love to see Auburn people represent Auburn well, regardless of where they end up on draft day. I think they have. I'm not surprised by those performances by any of those guys. Obviously, the combine is a lot of interviews and a lot of talking with teams too. Those three, especially, and including Jalen McLeod, are all stand-up guys that I'm sure knocked out of the park in those interviews. So next, we look forward to seeing kind of how they do at Auburn Pro Day, and then see where they end up at a new home in the draft. And certainly, we'll be following those guys and looking forward to hopefully successful, long NFL careers.
Yeah, and just like quick notes from it as well, I think something to point out is the story of Eugene Asante, who had the second fastest linebacker time. Again, as you note, it's one aspect of being a great athlete and being a great football player is your speed. But this is a Eugene Asante that was, by his own account, overlooked by the previous staff, given an opportunity by Coach Hugh Freeze, and has excelled in that role, increasingly so, during the 2 years that he spent under the Hugh Freeze regime, and really become a force to be reckoned with there. And he's just a quality human being as far as we can tell, and just the moments that we get to see with him as well. How funny he is, energetic, stand-up guy that he seems to be. You couple that with a great athlete. You got to wonder, like you pointed out, it's more than just the athletics, it's interviews and stuff like that. You got to wonder, did Eugene Asante have the best combine knowing what we know about him? Just my thought.
It's possible. I think there's so many, I don't want to get too NFL-y or football-y, but there's so many intangibles is the big word talked about a lot. And I think Eugene Asante has a lot of those that check the boxes. So I have no doubt he's going to kill it in a lot of interviews with GMs and coaches and things like that. Like you've already talked about, his work ethic and his personality are there. You could say that about all four of these guys. So I think that it'll be very fun to see how these guys do, and maybe if they overperform or overdrafted more than what the experts, quote unquote, think.
Yeah, and I think that's the same thing you could say for Jarquez. Some of the stuff that he had happened during his time here and how he responded and continued to build. His athleticism is there. KLS speaks for himself. The numbers at two different places, that's going to translate. And we know that the pedigree that Jalen McLeod has been able to go up to each new level, the next level being the NFL, and perform. So happy to see them perform. We'll watch them at Pro Day, and I'm excited to see where all of these guys and more potentially land in the NFL when that time comes around very, very soon. That's going to do it for Auburn Potpourri. Let's move into our first major topic this evening. Boy, did I pick a week to miss basketball.
Just a little one.
Just a few things happened. Now, to be honest, the week started kind of mundanely. We expected probably we were going to beat some certain teams. Everybody was looking more towards a Kentucky win. Again, folks, granted, we're talking about this a little bit more in extended fashion than we typically will because I was on vacation. So I missed us being able to finish out the week previous and talk about the Arkansas game, then talk about the UGA game, and then Ole Miss in the week. So let's talk about those two ones because Arkansas is so far away. It's not even relevant anymore. We beat them. UGA and Ole Miss, we win 82-70 versus Georgia at home versus Ole Miss 106-76. You sweep two of the three so far that you play twice in the season for Auburn, that being Alabama, Georgia, and Ole Miss. And so now we've taken down Georgia and Ole Miss twice. So that's impressive. To beat someone two times every year or any year is just a feat in of itself because it's a second look. It's a second opportunity to improve, to fall apart. So that's impressive for the Tigers.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially as you get to these mid-February, early March games, when there's some teams like Georgia, like Ole Miss, who are playing for spots. They're playing for a chance to bolster that resume. Not that Auburn doesn't have a lot to play for or didn't have a lot to play for at that time, but Auburn, those teams are playing to try and get in the tournament, right? And a win over number one Auburn would have certainly helped those chances. It didn't happen, and it looks like those teams could be in the tournament, still have a little work to do, but Auburn doesn't falter, sweeps both of them, and that's just impressive when you look at the pedigree of the SEC this year. Like we've said every week, there is any team in this league is dangerous on any given night, and Auburn has continued to take everyone seriously, take every game for what it is, and gets two big wins at home.
Absolutely. But the big one this week, and where we're going to spend the majority of our time talking, not just about the result, but the timeline of things that happen in all of this. Auburn versus Kentucky is a big one every year these days since Auburn has become relevant again under Bruce Pearl in basketball. It's one you look forward to, and Auburn's got a not more than a flying chance at it. Now, if you go to Rupp Arena, which this one was, 1988 was the last time that Auburn won there.
Kyle was like 7 years old at that point.
No, Kyle was 1 year old at that point. Wait a minute, actually, I wasn't even one, because it was probably this time of year. I was like maybe 9 months, something like that. I don't know when the exact game was played, but it's been a minute. 3 decades of dominance by Kentucky over Auburn in Rupp Arena. Well, no more, folks. This is the last benchmark. It's in terms of talking about blue bloods of the SEC that needed to fall. I feel like I can't think of anything else in regards to SEC teams, streaks, things like that. I mean, certainly playing in Gainesville is a hill that's still hard to climb, but this was the mountaintop, taking down the perennial power in Rupp Arena. The Tigers do it and embarrass the heck out of the Kentucky Wildcats. It was glorious.
Just incredible. A feat that was one I just wasn't sure when we'd ever see happen. Hasn't happened in my lifetime for sure. I'm much younger than Kyle. But
thank you for reminding me once again. Thank you.
This if it didn't happen this year, it was like, when's it going to happen, right? And so very cool to see this team just go in, treat them like any other opponent, right? And no one's saying this Kentucky team is what they've been or the heights of Kentucky basketball. They're certainly a good team, and one that's finding their footing under new first-year coach Mark Pope. But Auburn turned out to be the better team and just demolished Kentucky. Took everything that they had, blows for blows, and inside Rupp Arena, where it's always raucous, was just very impressive. Now, most of you didn't get to see a third of the game, unless you were there. From 12 minutes on is a mystery. But no matter what, Auburn comes out a winner. And how many teams have won the SEC championship at Rupp Arena? I'd love to know that stat.
There are so many ways that you could just dissect this win. The score alone, how they dominated, the significance of the length of time it's been, the factors of winning, as you said, a share at that time of the SEC championship in Rupp Arena. You couldn't have scripted better for Auburn this year to have all of these things kind of aligned together in Lexington. Now, of course, we'd love to have done it in Auburn, but then you wouldn't be able to end the streak. Right. I want to go back to the broadcast going out. Let's discuss it. I think it's ironic that their darling of the SEC is getting their butts handed to them by the new darling of the SEC at their turf, and it's about to go down. And then something. Oh, look, the broadcast just magically goes away, and we can't get it fixed. It's ironic, isn't it?
It's ironic. It sounds like reports are a generator caught on fire. So that's quite an excuse to not see the Big Blue Butts get beat on their own court. But the only thing we need to check out now is, will Miles Kelly be arrested for arson? Because his shots were certainly on fire. I don't know if that had an effect on the generators, but nevertheless, shout out to Andy Burcham and Coach Randall Dickey. They do their courtside cam every game. You can watch Andy react to every play, every game. But once they found out what was going on, they just turned their camera to the court. That's how I watched the rest of the game, and it wasn't pretty, but it was pretty good.
I didn't know that they did that. So let me give you the context.
Please.
I'm on the way back home that day vacation. By the way, I was supposed to be able to watch the game because it was supposed to be at a different time. Y'all moved that up, which is ironic because they moved the time up. Then we have this happen. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that there aren't conspiracies, but I'm also saying it smells a little bit here. And it's not me. So, I don't know, man. There's a lot going on. I didn't know that Andy, because I lost the connection in the car, and I thought first, oh, well, we're in the car watching this thing. Who knows? And then I start getting reports from everybody on Twitter. Hey, we can't see this thing either, and it's not coming back. And then they finally announced on the broadcast, hey, we can't get it back.
Finally.
Like, something smells here real bad. And like I said, it wasn't me. I'm sure I could have used another shower after the week that I had walking around a certain place. So All that to be said, it is still poetic that Auburn does. They can erase the broadcast all they want. It happened. It's over.
Yes.
It's done. Bruce Pearl has toppled another mountaintop on top of that. We talked about a little bit already. They win the game. They win a share of the SEC championship. Nice to already have that locked up with 2 games to go.
Absolutely.
Not that it hasn't been really a high possibility for a long time now, after Auburn going through a murderer's row of a season and SEC specifically competition. But then the day just couldn't get any sweeter. I mean, we set it up for you, Ari. Austin teed it up for you. The decades that it took to break this streak in Rupp Arena, the fact that it was an SEC championship, co-championship was won at their place, the fact that they had to burn up a generator so they could, it was all sweet enough. And then we got to sing and hear this little song. Rocky Top,
are you doing this?
you'll
Oh,
always be to me. Oh, Rocky Top.
Woo!
We're a little off there. Rocky Top, Tennessee. Buzzer beater. The Tigers are now your undisputed, outright, as it was said, every single place SEC champs, because some might say mighty, they're a good basketball team, but not as good as us yet. Alabama Crimson Tide was taken down by a last-second 3-pointer at playing the Vols, and it was beautiful. I know this is an Auburn show. We don't sit here focusing about all that, but look, the fact is, if Tennessee doesn't do that to them, we're not talking about the outright championship for Auburn. What a great day and a great way to cap everything off.
Really great day. Really great to happen all in the same day. Look, Auburn was going to have a chance to win this outright regardless, whether it be against A&M and then someone else have a chance at Alabama. I think Florida is who they have, or against Alabama outright in Neville Arena next Saturday. Sure. So there were certain, it didn't have to happen exactly like that, but there were certainly chances later on. However, it did happen like that, and it was pretty sweet. So really, really cool to see, regardless, and no one loves seeing Alabama lose more than me, I assure you. But regardless, to see a buzzer beater like that happen for another team to win a championship on March 1st, that had to get you a little bit excited, because the month is here, and we're starting to see early signs of it. So very cool. Auburn outright. They are not sharing anything is the word I'll use, and so I think it's pretty exciting. I can't get enough of the fact that this is the hardest the SEC has ever been, the hardest any college basketball conference has ever been. And Auburn wins the SEC championship outright with 2 games to play. It's any way you cut it, that's pretty sweet.
And I think it's a great point to bring up, because we may have discussed it on the last episode 2 weeks ago. I can't remember if we did or not. It's been a minute. But this notion that I've seen a lot of fans start, I even saw this out, I don't know if it's a podcast clip or something. This notion that somehow if they don't win a championship or they don't make a certain thing, that this is like all for naught. No, that dismisses how incredible of a season this has been, given the context of how strong their non-conference was and how incredible this SEC competition was and what they've accomplished by beating everybody but 2 people so far. Granted, you may lose the last 2, but to dismiss any incredibleness, or that's not even a word, just the special nature of this season simply because they don't do X down the line, that may be a possibility. It's March, folks. It's madness. Anything can happen. But it's so special right now. And so don't lose sight of that, folks. Final thing I want to talk about basketball before we move on. I want to give a special note to a special player. Some of you saw that stat go out there as we were celebrating several things on social media. Again, to the Auburn creative team, they continue to do a great job in that. But noted that Dylan Cardwell became the winningest men's basketball player in Auburn men's basketball history, with that win over Kentucky. Just throw that on top of all the other things that we talked about, how special it was. Couldn't have happened. That fact, that stat couldn't have happened, I think, to a better player in Auburn basketball, at least in the modern history. I mean, it's a special moment for a special guy.
Absolutely. It breaks the, long-standing record of Jalen Williams for about 13 months. But to another great individual who's represented Auburn basketball.
I know. I was
Auburn
going to go
University very
there.
well. But, in this day and age, and Coach Sproles talks about it so often, Dylan had every chance to leave. Not many would have blamed him when you look at Walker Kessler, Janai Broom, guys who have come in and played the same position as him. But a guy who fell in love with Auburn and it stands alone at the top of all-time wins as a player. So very cool. There is many more still to come for him to add to that total. But very cool, very special. And I think the entire Auburn family is very happy to see Dylan be the one that has that title.
And just think, if they weren't that old, he wouldn't be able to accomplish this thing. It's almost
That's
like,
right.
Retaining people, making them happy, giving them a chance to grow as individuals, as players for a lengthy amount of time is actually a recipe for success for them and for us. That's a weird concept, isn't it?
It's an odd concept. Many like to joke about, apparently, but it's also not a foreign concept because there's other teams that are plenty older than us in the league. But
it is.
Not any other team in this league is a champion yet, so
Yes.
We'll take it.
Whether it's Jalen Williams, whether it's Dylan, two individuals that have carried that stat now in back-to-back seasons, frankly, two great individuals. Dylan, I think, has really set himself apart, though. As you and I have joked about, if Auburn doesn't find a way to sign him to some lifetime contract, just some way serving Auburn or working for them as a marketer when he's done playing basketball, they have failed, in my opinion. He's an outstanding individual as far as we can tell. I have met him a few times and every chance I've had to get to interact with him has been great. And he seems to carry himself on the court well. He's improved so drastically. And not to say he was bad when he arrived, but certainly I think we can all see the trajectory that he's had over, a length of time. There's another shocker. To see the basketball player that he's become too and so respected. So happy for him and happy for this team. What a great week.
Absolutely.
So, folks, it's almost over, so enjoy it while you got it. Let's move on to our second major topic this evening. And as we discussed when we moved into officially the spring sports season, it's not only was it going to be busy for us to try to cover everything, but we're going to try our best when it's appropriate to do some segments focused on the diamond sports. So we're going to do that here. A lot happened since we were off or I was off. Austin was, again, patiently waiting for me to get back.
That's all I've been doing. I've been sitting right here
in that room
for 2 weeks,
not going to work, not taking care of two twin boys.
Nope. Right here.
So we got a lot to cover. Would you like to do baseball or softball first? How would you like to go about it?
Let's do softball. Let's
talk
about softball.
Well, I mean, they just had a great week and only lost one game.
I mean, one loss on the whole year already, for pretty good for the Malveaux era.
I think I need to go on vacation more, is what I'm hearing, based off of this and how baseball did. How do you think about that? Can I just go on an extended vacation from now on?
Look, I'm all for trends, and regardless of what people think, the trend is when I attend basketball games, we win. So I think if we both can agree to this, then I'm all in.
So you need to be attending more basketball games, and I need to go on vacation. I'm down for that.
Agreed.
All right, back to softball here. So again, I'm probably going to miss something here trying to run through all of this, but they participated in the Rocket City Showcase. Were some scheduling issues. In fact, their matchup with James Madison was canceled. They did open up the showcase losing to Louisiana Tech 1-5, the only loss on the year thus far, but made it back up after getting those scheduling issues done, beating North Alabama in Madison. Kind of a nice little addition there. Miami of Ohio, they won 11-6. And then Jack State, not too far away from North Alabama or the Madison area, somewhat, 3-2. So you had a lot of Alabama, North Alabama or North-ish Alabama action up there. It was a nice thing to see Auburn deal with all the scheduling issues and have a mostly successful time there at a place that has become very fond for Auburn fans, whether we're talking about baseball, we're talking about softball, we're talking about basketball. Huntsville is just a hub for Auburn folks, and they were treated as some great Auburn softball success up there.
Yeah, a super fast-growing area, in the state for one, but that always ends up being helpful for Auburn folks and Auburn people. So really cool to see that Auburn take a trip up there, a minor league baseball park that doesn't see a lot of softball, transforms for the weekend. And Auburn softball certainly enjoys their time there, and plays some really good softball. So just very, very surprising, not because of the lack of talent or anything like that on the team, but still a very surprising start to the year in the new era of a new team, and so many new things. Very fun to see where this team has started. I don't think anyone thought it would be, 1-18 or anything like 1-19 or anything like that. But to see them have this much success this early. Now there's plenty of tests still to come in the SEC. Yeah. We've talked about that ad nauseum, but very fun to see and very fun jumpstart for the Malveaux era.
But they came back to Auburn for the most recent stuff from this weekend, the Jane B. Moore Memorial. I feel like this is the tournament we have every single year to kind of
every year,
close out I won't say close out because you have your midweek non-conference games, but to kind of effectively the regular non-conference close that out at home. You hosted Rutgers, who Auburn beat 5-0. McNeese State, Auburn beat 10-6. The Ragin' Cajuns of Louisiana, I still want to call them Lafayette, 6-3 a win. McNeese State again 3-1 win, and then once more with the Ragin' Cajuns, they won 4-3. Some close matches there, even at home. So it just goes to show you can't take a weekend off. Louisiana Lafayette historically has been a pretty decent softball program by my recollection. At least I feel like I've remember that being the case, them being a little bit more challenging. But they sweep the home tournament, Jane B. Moore, and at least for the majority of the non-conference schedule have rounded that out outside of some midweek games. It's a nice way to get rolling with only one loss in that part of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of resilience, lots of close games, like you said, but lots of comeback wins. Just seems like pitching and the right players in the outfield, whether it's Anna Wohlers or Annalie Adams, a freshman, just the right personnel at the right time seems to be working well. I think I've been really impressed with the pitching, and I shouldn't be because that is the Malveau's expertise, right?
Yep.
And so you would hope that that's the case. But a lot of the people they've brought in, a lot of transfers they've brought in, and then the veterans on this team like Nelly Peralta all seem to be working well. So very cool to see for Auburn softball that things are clicking. And hopefully that's the case. And it could be a really fun special year.
It's a great start for a year where, as you pointed out, it's a lot of change. Things could be a little bit more wobbly in terms of stability, not because there's anything wrong. It's just a change, right? That's usually what happens. That things cannot be as secure the foundations being set again. So great start in non-conference play. That's your softball update. Let's talk about baseball a little bit. It has been quite the week or 2 weeks for them as well. We want to spend most of our time talking about what was a fun weekend in Dallas for them. But as a quick note, I would be remiss if I didn't mention this last game that we didn't get to talk about. Troy win in a midweek game. The first one, what a thrilling victory over a ranked opponent, Troy. Auburn was not ranked at the time. 7-6, Ike Irish walk-off hit. This is what got my week going. I was on vacation, but I tuned into this one because I was like, I got to see this. And when I saw Ike bat that in to get us started, you know how important midweek games are. You can't waste these opportunities. And to see him do that in that moment, I think especially when he had, we'll call it a slower start, was a great sign for Auburn.
Agreed. And you mentioned midweek games typically tends to be those in-state teams too, who definitely want to beat Auburn. So very cool to see Ike Irish kind of come out of that. I thought the same thing when I saw that walk-off. I thought that probably means a little bit more based on just a slower start to the year than many were accustomed to for him. So really emotional win, really cool win for Auburn. And definitely one that could have been overlooked, setting up for a big weekend in Dallas. So very cool to see for Auburn and Troy. That game was awesome. And then I think they had Samford the night after. Is that right, Kyle? Or?
They had North Alabama, who they beat.
Okay, North Alabama.
6-2. They would play Samford a week later and win 15-8.
Mix them up.
Mix them up a little bit. But, hey, you play every in-state team basically.
That's right.
Baseball is your midweek game. So you kind of walk through the state there, at least to start off the non-conference midweek games, and do really good, especially against a ranked opponent, but taking down North Alabama, Samford. Mixed in with there was Wright State, who they swept. In fact, they had 2, I think, 7-inning They just run rule
Run
them.
rule. Yep.
11-0, 11-1, and 9-4 to wrap things up. And let's point this out before we talk about the big thing that just finished up today. I think some people were a little bit leery when they dropped a first game in that first series and were a little bit worried because I think everybody had said, yeah, this is a team that you should probably sweep as your opening season. And that was a little bit unnerving. And frankly, listening to Coach in his press conference afterward, I kind of got the sense too, just me interpreting into reading between the lines, that he was a little bit kind of concerned about what he saw in that first loss. You got to think that this is such a great response. It's a reassurance for him, for the players to say, look, this is baseball. Anybody can have a great day. There's great teams across college baseball, no matter how big or prominent they are. So Auburn goes out, takes care of business at home in midweek games on series, and then heads into a big one. Amagi, I think is how you say it. Amagi Bank College Baseball Series. We've known this. I think we previously talked about it when it was announced. You were going to be playing Ohio State, Oregon State, 2 OSUs, and you were going to be playing Baylor in this game. So big names just in brands in college athletics, especially Oregon State. We will all remember back to that amazingly fun but late night series in the College Baseball World Series playoff that sent us to the College Baseball World Series. That was a fun but very tiring time for me. Your Tigers are undefeated. They beat Ohio State 13-0, run rule. They beat Oregon State 8-7, a ranked 8 team. Baylor 7-4. That's a big name typically or at least a big enough name in baseball as well. What are your thoughts on this incredible weekend for Auburn baseball?
Yeah, just an impressive weekend. I don't know if I would have totally been sold on them going 3-0 this weekend. Just all the factors. You're playing in a Major League Baseball park, getting some pretty good competition. But the team seems to have found the bats at a really good time and is getting comfortable. I think something you have to point out is that the freshmen on this team seem to be elevated into a spot to see if they can perform, and they're doing it, whether it's Chris Chatterton pitching on the mound or Chris Rimber at the plate, both having very good seasons, both having very good weekends specifically. So very impressive wins for Auburn. Now, I think there's still some caution about the pitching, and especially in relief, giving up some of these numbers and at times getting a little, in a rut. But to go out there and be 3-0 in a round robin tournament style kind of weekend like this is pretty impressive. That gives a lot of confidence for this team. And there's only one more weekend before it's SEC play, and that will be when it matters most. So hopefully the good vibes keep going into SEC play, but very cool to see that weekend and Auburn take advantage of playing 3 big Power 5 teams.
And you got to, like we talked about with that early first loss in the series, people were a little bit worried. When you take down number 8 Oregon State on the road, it's a neutral site, but it's still a road game in a sense. 8-7, that's got to make you feel so much better, because that's one of those big names that you kind of you check off on the list of like, okay, we are able to compete even if we drop some games that we shouldn't have. I think everybody's a little gun shy after last year, which was just an anomaly of a year. Kind of reflects what's going on with women's basketball, frankly, if you want to kind of at least make that correlation a little bit in some sense. But that is probably the one that stuck out to me, because look, Ohio State, have they ever been good in baseball? I mean, like,
I'm sure they've had a year, but I mean, when you're playing in sub 20 degree weather, it can't be fun.
Exactly. We usually, no offense to you northern teams, we don't really take you that much serious unless you're up like in the Pacific Coast, like Oregon State is. So I think all eyes were on that one, the Oregon State game, and that one really just, I remember seeing that come across my phone while I was on vacation. I was like, hey, now that is big deal right there. And Baylor, as you said, this is a place that probably got a lot of local support. Waco's not too far from Dallas. So to have that performance there, you got to think too, the Auburn family has a big contingency of fans across the United States, but in Houston, it's a little bit of a drive, but I know there's a big contingency there, and I'm sure it was in Dallas that got to come and see this. We had some viewers and some people that watch our show frequently. Shout out to Devin, I think was there with her family, that got to go and be witnesses of baseball, as Bruce Pearl would probably be appropriately okay with us borrowing that. But what a great weekend. Is there anything that we've missed that I just want to continue celebrating that?
Yeah, really great weekend. I liked what you said earlier about how, it's baseball and anything happens. There's been a lot of highly ranked SEC teams who have dropped games early this year, where everyone's kind of like, wait a minute, I think A&M dropped to Texas State. Florida might have dropped one to, the Hatters.
Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking
Another
about.
in-state team.
Yeah.
Stetson.
Stetson,
I don't know if they dropped one, but they struggled in some games. I think Texas has lost one. So it's baseball. It's going to happen when you play that many games. But I think the way Auburn has responded and played up to their competition since then has been something fun to see, and hopefully bodes very well for SEC because they're going to have to play up to their competition quite a bit. So we'll see. One more non-conference weekend. If you haven't gotten to Plains and Park and checked out all the new fancy stuff, I have not been yet. Hoping to get over there soon. But one more weekend could be a really fun weekend if you're coming in town next weekend for basketball to get over to Plains and Park too. But then SEC play starts, and you'll definitely want to be here.
Austin's trying to get me to come this weekend. He did it off screen, but now he's doing it on screen again.
This segment sponsored by AO Tourism.
Yes. If they want to,
unofficially.
But if you'd love to, we'd love to work with you. All that to be said, it's been a great start so far. As you said, one more series to go, and still, midweek non-conference games as it was for softball. But for the Diamond Sports, we're sitting here mostly through the regular non-conference play, only one loss apiece. Doesn't get much better than that. And just another addition to a great Auburn week. That's going to do it for episode 115 of the Auburn Experience podcast. Thank you all so much for, first of all, letting me go on vacation for a week, but also thank you to Austin for being patient and letting us miss out on some great things that were happening. We covered it all, I think, but thanks to him for holding down the fort in the sense of not letting everything fall apart, I guess, while I was gone. Just sitting there waiting.
I've been so patient, just waiting. I've been sitting here like this for so long.
Just waiting to hold. He's been doing nothing but holding that. I want to talk about this right now. All that to be said, thank you for being here. If you want to keep up with me, do so on X at Kyle Loomis 24. Where can they find you?
Yeah, on X, Austin G. Scott. Hopefully plenty more to come talking about this week, next week. And hey, it's March, Kyle. I know how much that means to you and me specifically. It is March.
Already got my plan for my setup.
Oh, yeah.
3 TV screens and the computer in front of me. I've already told the wife, don't talk to me that week. Sorry, that was rude. Just, maybe send me an alert text. I need to talk to you while I'm sitting here just going around watching every bit of action.
It's almost bracket season. It is almost here. Make sure you're tuned in to E2C Network. Get on the bracket train. Brooks and Barrett will be submitting brackets again this year. It's going to be awesome.
Yes, we will be talking about that more coming up in the future as well. But we will talk about that and much more in upcoming episodes. Thanks for hanging out. Until we talk to you again. War Eagle.
War Eagle.